Mayday, mayday, mayday. Shelfside 123, crowded airspace, fuel leaking, coffee machine breaking, requesting immediate vectors for an emergency landing at your airport, runway 69, over.
Shelfside 123, understand mayday, cleared to land runway 69.
Affirmative, preparing more coffee. No comms until dice are placed, over.
Preparing what?
Pull, too low, flat, pull, up, too low, gear, up, too low, terrain.
Shelfside 123, what are you doing? I repeat, what are you doing?
Approaching minimums. Minimums. 2,500, 1,000, 500, 400, 300, 200, 100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
This is Sky Team, a game all about landing a plane safely, and we get to play as pilots without any sort of certification or training. In Sky Team, you and a buddy play as two pilots, trying to get your passenger airplane to the airport by placing dice in slots. While adjusting for flight speed, meeting a brake threshold, the plane also has to be righted straight. Yeah, this is truly a flight emulation. It's quite short at 20 minutes for two players with all sorts of maps. I've played this at least a dozen times, likely over 4.5 hours at this point. I kind of just lost track of how many times I've played it. FYI, I did get this expansion free from the publisher without any promise for content, and I bought the base game by myself at the $30 MSRP, because I was just too curious on how this game kept shooting up the BGG rankings, and I was reminded that it's the Spiel Des Jahres winner for 2024 upon unboxing. So it must be pretty good, right? We're mostly talking about base game, but we'll touch on the expansion periodically throughout this review. But yeah, thanks to our patrons here for making videos like this possible, and if you want to support us, of course, go to our Patreon or Coffee, links down below. Also, our Mad Lads card bar are over here. Thank you guys so much. Anyways, now onwards to how to play. Goal is to land the plane. The plane must be in the airport with altitude at 0 with a bunch of conditions met that are 1. The plane must be horizontal, aka straight on its axis. 2. You cannot crash into any other plane. 3. All the landing gear and flaps must be opened. 4. The plane's speed must be lower than its brakes on its last turn. To accomplish this, you'll place down die one at a time between you and your co-pilot. So let's begin. At the start of a round, you can talk. Talk now, because later you can't, as you both secretly roll your dice. Now no more talking. These are now your 4 dice to use for the entire round. On a turn, you place a die down on the board. Some spaces need certain die faces, like these landing gear spaces. Placing a die down generally does a thing, like opening the flaps, or using the radio to warn planes ahead of you to get out of the way. What must get placed every round are the steering and engine. For steering, if there's a difference in the two values of dice, the plane will start leaning in that direction. If it hits the red X, your plane goes... For the engine, you go to the number added up, then look at the landing gear and flap locations. If you're less than both, you don't move this round. If you're in the middle, you move up 1. If you shoot past the orange marker, you move 2 spaces. And of course, if you crash into any plane at all while doing this, you lose. There's also the brakes. Yeah, that's important. These don't matter until the very end when you're trying to land the plane. As in the final round, the engine number must be lower than the brakes. Once all players place their dice, that's the end of the round. If you haven't won by landing, just take back the dice, decrease the altitude, then you can start talking for the next round. That's it, just see if you can land that plane safely. Pros! First is component pros time, and the game just vibes well. Like, even the rulebooks look pretty cool. And then you got these nice small wooden mugs and these little airplanes. These are wood. Nice. Then you got the airplane tilt being this actual plastic thing to move back and forth. Yeah, component-wise, this does a good job of being a board game. The player aids are also dice shields that you can actually read since the info is on the bottom. The board is immersive and functional, like the dice all fit nicely in their areas, the coffee mugs even have their own area, and you flip the switches to green as you complete plane hardware tasks. As you advance up the approach tracks, they disappear under your board, selling this illusion that your plane is actually flying forward, above things. Everything is extremely easy to see, and when you place down a die, it's super clear what's going on, which is very important because you can't talk during the dice placement phase of the game. You can see die, and then you can look up and stare at your teammate who may be messed up. Sky Team is also easy to get into. Okay, so it's not the simplest game, but it has a nice learning curve despite all its many win and lose conditions, because actually all you need to know is that you place 1 die a turn in a slot. Then 2 of your dice have to go in their specific slots on the board. That's half of your actions. So that brings us to gameplay pros. And the first is that this game has some great interaction, especially for gameplay where You're not talking most of the time. Sky Team is actually a big signaling exercise, as you have 4 dice hidden from your teammate, and then you're guessing each other's dice as you're placing more dice on the board. Let's go back to the steering, where both players usually want the plane to go straight, so you should match dice, otherwise the plane starts leaning to the difference between the 2 dice. So you should play a mid value, like your 3 or 4, so your teammate has more leeway in responding. But if you don't have any 3s or 4s, you can signal to your teammate that you don't have any of those numbers by placing down a wild number in this area. Like, you'd have to be crazy to intentionally put down a 6 here, right? Oh, it's because if they rolled a 4, they would have to place it on flaps this round, otherwise we lose. We misplayed and didn't talk about that before the round, but now I know, I see it. Or you can look at what your teammate doesn't do. Like, say you previously agreed that they would be the radio person to get rid of the plane in front of you guys, otherwise you crash. But they don't, instead placing the die in, coffee? Who would get coffee to just give someone a +1 or -1 in such a dire moment? We already have coffee. Wait, maybe they don't have the right die, so they're trying to nudge you in the direction that you have to be the one this round to do the radio. And there's guaranteed signaling in when you both decide to first place on the engine and steering track, as that'll let your teammate plan out the rest of the round by knowing what else they have to put there. You can't always just do this blindly first, because sometimes you want to have the plane pointed a certain direction before moving, or open up more flaps before committing to engine so you don't overshoot the airport. So then that would mean for this round, before you roll a die, you'd have to communicate that, hey, we're gonna open up the landing gear, then move forward, okay? Not the other way around. Essentially, Sky Team has to be interactive because you're both slowly getting information about each other's hands of dice. Sometimes you don't want to commit certain numbers until you know more, because you can never take off die. Like, you only want to play dice in the critical steering and engines only when you're sure you won't lose the game off of it. How does your team want to signal how to do this? Like, you can decide, oh, how much coffee is too much coffee? Is it 2 coffee? And then my teammate's telling me something? Or is it when they place that 3rd coffee, when they really tell me I need to do something? Also, the 4 dice per round feels like a perfect amount, where it's just enough dice to have uncertainty, but also makes for pretty smooth signaling. Even halfway through a round, there's still 2 unknowns left, which is a good amount of mystery for a 20-minute game. Also, only 4 actions per player means that you can get back to talking and communicating verbally more frequently. The next gameplay pro is that Sky Team managed to be very consistently tense, with an upwards progression of tension as you maybe get closer to crashing on land. You got the 2 locations of engines and steering you always must put dice in every round, so that tension never goes away. Then the plane is constantly dropping, but you need to deploy hardware before you touch ground. And as you progress forward, there's generally more planes in front, which will require more effort to get to the radio and tell them to get the hell out of the way. The engine has more nuance than steering, where it gives you this awesome choice of intentionally going faster or slower. That is, pumping higher or lower dice to have your plane stay put, go forward a space, or forward 2 spaces. Granted, there's only 7 rounds because your plane only drops down in the sky, so however fast or slow the plane is going in relation to the 7 rounds, you must make up for later. This gives a good amount of agency early to mid-game that catches up to you endgame as you realize you must suddenly speed up or slow down to actually land on the airport. Then there's really something to be said about how the theme meets gameplay really well to create this compelling story that ratchets up the tension. Like, you can feel that the plane really needs to be straightened out before you hit the ground. You are literally flipping switches to get all those gear out before you touch the ground. Or how you're drinking coffee to desperately stay awake to get those perfectly executed maneuvers to get those perfect numbers end game. Because just like landing a real plane in Sky Team, when you're landing that plane, the margin for error in your numbers has to be really, really small, and you can't get away with sloppiness that you might have had earlier when you're higher up in the air. Then, for a game that's all just dice rolling for your actions, Sky Team mitigates the RNG quite well. This is because you're rolling 4 dice per player per round, and so with 2 players and 7 rounds, that's a minimum of 56 dice rolled. And look at how things like the steering are based off of relative value between the dice, or how the engine progress is both the dice being added together, and you can wait to push up the landing gear or flaps after you place on the engines to play around your rolls better. Every number is good at something throughout the course of the game. If your 1 you rolled feels too weak, then maybe just put it in the engine and just go slower this round. Or if all else fails, just dump it into coffee, and later on, you get those +1 -1s to manipulate your dice. There's also 1 to 2 rerolls in standard mode, and you get to choose what you reroll, so you really can't complain much. Okay, fine, you could get really unlucky and at the last round, roll 2 6s when you needed 1s. But that's really the minority, and good play earlier in the session will give you more breathing room around the roll perfect or crash situations. Also, this runs really true to time at 20 minutes. Like, pretty much all the games are 7 rounds. That doesn't change unless you die early. And the game's even faster if you use the included 60-second real-time variant, which we did a couple times, but man, is that stressful. I need this to be a 1.
Oh, we need the reroll.
Now for replayability pros. This game has a lot of included maps and modules, so let's get into those. So first you can change out the maps on the flight track for different airports, which can add requirements for how your airplane must be turned, or having planes spawn randomly. There's even an option to choose one of 6 cards for your team to use as an ability, like you can flip a die face once per game. Or you can use the black traffic die if both players commit to hardware on a round. Or there's a leaking kerosene variant, where in one variation of it, it leaks a lot every turn unless you add a die to it, which reduces the tank still, but only by the die number now. So it's another death threat. Or how about the wind, another great theme mini gameplay mechanic that'll influence the wind speeding up or slowing down your plane as you steer the plane differently. Hooray for more ways to manipulate your die values. There's even a way to vary up the board through ice breaks, which really amps up the difficulty of landing, as now there's a shared space for the players to unstick the brakes. My favorite variant was the intern, who is just another space on the board you can grab values from. So you put down a die, then pick up that value, which is like a die face to go anywhere. It's a fantastic mechanic to mitigate RNG and also give you another timer to complete. In total, there's 21 more maps, and this is a lot for a $30 game. We reckon that it's about an hour per scenario to win, so that's what, 21 plus hours of gameplay? Okay, sure, some of these will admittedly blend together as you add or subtract the same modules, but it is still sheer content. Plus there's maps online you can print and play for free. Wow. Huge shout out to them for giving even more content to us. More content for the fans. Cons. Not really that much here. I mean, we do think the game is a little bit too small. Like physically it could be bigger. It's kind of a pain sometimes to get the coffee in and out of their slots. Sometimes the switches are a little bit annoying to go back and forth. It's not that bad, but could be bigger. Oh, and then also you need about 1 or 2 plastic bags for all the little small pieces that come in the game. The rulebook is functional and has nice boxes to focus your attention on winning or losing, but it does need an index. Come on, just put an index in here, guys. 1 index. Scoring! Now it's time for a recommender score on SkyTeam, where we try to critically evaluate the aforementioned pros and cons of the game, with the caveat of whether or not this is even a good idea in the first place. And this is a flight emulator for 2 people, 20 minutes, where you're silently putting down dice, and then later on you can talk, and it's actually kind of like a worker placement in putting down the dice, and then putting them back into your area. So this is gonna get a 9 out of 10. It is excellent. Spiel Des Jahres? Yeah, seems like it's pretty well deserved. SkyTeam is not a simple game at a glance. There's a decent amount to explain with all the different landing gear and seeing how the plane moves forward for a 20-minute game. But it's a surprisingly smooth learning curve due to its elegant, intuitive, and easy to see design. But yeah, ultimately it is just placing dice quietly. There's not a ridiculous amount of theory crafting, but that's fine because SkyTeam is very grounded in its scope and theme meeting gameplay. Like there's not a lot of phases in this game. There's no random card flips. It's really just you can talk, then you don't talk, then you place the 4 dice down. 2 of your dice have their set locations on the board you have to place them in. Then for theme, yeah, it's a normal plane piloted by normal people. It really is this box cover. Nothing weird will happen when landing the plane, like aliens aren't gonna come and attack your plane. Your plane's not gonna get hijacked. Your co-pilot isn't secretly an enemy spy. It really is just an unfortunate, life-threatening day at work, and you just have to get through it together. I mean, honestly, I was thinking about this being a 10 out of 10, but it just needs a little bit more compelling replayability. Like, imagine playing as different pilots. Like one pilot had 5 dice, but maybe the pilot's drunk, so sometimes their numbers get manipulated. Or a hotshot pilot that gets to place first every round if they wanted to. Or perhaps just have scenarios be more compelling to start, besides just mixing around modules and reading a small blurb of flavor text. We had an idea of having the game interact with kerosene more by asking you to fuel up another plane during some point in your journey. Then you read chat logs from the book as it happened. But yeah, there's really nothing to complain about. SkyTeam deserves very high praise and is great for those who want their actions to speak for them. As in, the dice will speak volumes for you in this game, as you can't talk half the time. And with all the open information for when you can talk, it's usually quite straightforward what you need to do. English no good or not speaking same language as friend? Don't matter. Numbers tell the story. Heck, you could easily play this with the hearing impaired. Or you could play this in an airplane, even when it's loud. I mean, this game is small enough. Just don't say too loudly that the landing gear is stuck or that the brakes aren't deploying. Who knows, with all the signaling and quiet placement and hinting things, maybe this game could solve your relationship communication issues. Okay. Disclaimer, not saying this game is going to save your marriage by any means. But basically, if you have communication issues IRL, you can still play this game and have fun. Lastly, for the Turbulence expansion we tried a little bit of, yeah, it really isn't worth getting. It does add alarms for emergent random problems with the plane you have to spend effort to dismiss. Then there's adding re-rolling after each dice placement, or letting you slowly discover your rolls as a round progresses. These really aren't that interesting. Like, it does add penguins that actually just operate the same exact way as planes. Yes, like you get on the radio and you yell for them to get out of the way, otherwise you lose the game from hitting them. Come on, couldn't they have done something else here? What a buzzkill. But hey, if you really need the extra content, then yeah, go for it. It really just adds a lot of input randomness for more turbulent conditions in your flying.
I am Alexander. I really like cooperative games. I play mostly cooperative games. SkyTeam is going to get a 7 out of 10 for me. I think it's good. I don't know if I would want to purchase a copy myself, but if I was invited to play SkyTeam, I think I would basically always want to give it a go. I think it looks great. It's very immersive. I'm not a pilot. I don't know how to fly a 747 or a passenger airplane, but the game does a very good job of making you feel like you're piloting an airplane, while still obviously being a game. And basically every single mechanic in the whole game reinforces the emulation, I suppose, of trying to land an airplane, and all the stresses and tension that comes along with it makes this game very compelling. Even playing it multiple times and trying to land a plane on the same runway over and over again after losing, I just didn't get bored. I was interested in trying to land the plane. I like that there's just enough asymmetry between the two sides that they do feel distinct, and they do feel like you're kind of fulfilling a different role on the airplane if you're the pilot or you're the co-pilot. And I was talking with Ashton about it after we played, and I was thinking, would I want to play this game solo? Like if I was sitting here and I was rolling all 8 dice by myself and I was trying to figure out if I could win the game, I would say, yeah, I'd probably want to give it like a go once or twice. The reason I don't rate the game higher is because I think the content that exists is not interesting enough for the story that it's trying to tell. It's kind of a very consistent experience, but it's kind of like going to McDonald's where you're basically going to get the same experience every time. And if you change up the modules, then that will make it maybe more realistic, or, add in some new puzzle to consider. Which is fun. But at the end of the day, you're still trying to land a passenger airplane on an airport, which is fine. It's cool. But maybe it could be that one episode of The Twilight Zone where there's a little gremlin that's walking around breaking stuff on the plane. So maybe you roll the black flight die, and based on what you roll, you put one of the little blocker tokens on top of something, and it's like, you can't put die here anymore. Then it would be like this new element of, well, we might have to jump on this location now because it might be broken in the future. And so basically what I'm saying is I think there's still a lot of design space that could be worked with in this box. You don't need to make any new components. They're really good as they are, and they're very versatile. I just wish there was a bit more with them.
But is the game fun for me despite all the praise? Well, I'm gonna give this game a 6 out of 10. I have an above average time with it. I think the plane theme, meaning the gameplay, is cool. I like the interaction with the teammate, and I just find it to be a consistently tense and interesting time. It feels immersive enough for my limited knowledge. Like, basically I'm the sort of guy that would poke around Airplane Simulator every 3 to 5 years and play for like an hour or so and go, yeah, this is cool, and then just leave it and not play it again. I think a big through line for me in my enjoyment of this is that, yeah, I just don't like cooperative games as much as Alexander. So yeah, the game is certainly enjoyable when you read your teammate's mind perfect and guess their number down to the integer, or you get the perfect double 6 placement to boost engines double and jump across the spaces that would have spawned more planes. But I'd want more head-to-head activity for the amount of tension this game is already giving me. And for 20 minutes, I'd rather play a quick card game where every game feels different. And even if the game ended abruptly, the promise of a really cool game shortly around the corner keeps me enticed. In SkyTeam, it's just like, yeah, I always know exactly what I'm getting. It's a super consistently fine, enjoyable enough experience. Since SkyTeam is so grounded in its theme and actions with a very predictable, consistent gameplay loop, there's not really much room for me to be wowed by the game, or let me do some cool player expression. You just do the thing that you're supposed to do, and as the scenarios get harder and more interesting, the do the thing becomes a bit more nuanced and requires more discussion. But yeah, I mean, I'm not wowed. Ultimately, this is a game I would totally say yes to play if someone asked me once every couple months. It's short enough so I never feel cheated out of my time. Landing the plane feels interesting enough thematically to feel satisfying. But also I'm thinking, well, who would I play this with? This game is a little bit too heavy for me to play with family. And then I don't like the no talking element with close friends. But I'm thinking, yeah, this theme, it's not that interesting, but it'll always be thematically relevant. So yeah, maybe I'll play this game in 10 years and still be interested. Not wowed, but interested.